Welcome to the podcast. We talk about all the things that are hidden in the shadows. This is Isaac.
And this is Megan.
And on this episode that we have put out after Thanksgiving. I know we said before, but Thanksgiving week kind of took the toll. And like everyone who worked on Thanksgiving week before Thanksgiving break, we're like, I ain't doing shit.
I don't even think it was that. I think it was just like my job in particular, working retail, did not allow me any free time.
Yeah.
So, and then by the time you got home, you were exhausted as well. And it's just, yeah, it's one of those tiring weeks, especially.
Let's forget we had a case.
Yes.
Yeah. Good old Prussian case with the family. Took care of it. It was all set and done. Family saw results within the hour, which is interesting. Usually it takes about a day, but they saw results. So, another good case closed with the help of Mike and Christy from Unknown Paranormal.
Yes.
But today, we talk about something that I've always wanted to talk about ever since I first heard about it, which was the phenomenon known as the Glimmer Man or the Shimmer Man.
Yes.
Now we say either or because it's been called either or of those things.
Yes. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, we kind of talked a little bit about it in the Bigfoot episode, but the Glimmer Man is basically an invisible humanoid type entity that a lot of people have seen in like forest or wooded areas. And it almost looks like one person particularly described it as like a heatwave. Or if you've seen the Predator movie, The Predator, like how it was cloaked.
Yes, camouflaged.
Yes. Which we're going to get into those theories here in a little bit because I went down a rabbit hole a little bit that I had to crawl myself back out of before I went too deep.
But the reason why it gets associated with Bigfoot so much is majority of the sightings for the Glimmer/Shimmer Man are around the same areas that Bigfoot spotted as well. Some people theorize that the Glimmer Man or Shimmer Man, for the rest of the episode, I'm calling Glimmer Man.
Okay.
All right. I'm not going to go say both at the same time every single time. Some people theorize that the Glimmer Man is a cloaking technique of the Bigfoot. That is some technology they have to cloak themselves.
Yes, I'm good. That's the rabbit hole I went down.
Yeah.
But then also a theory that people were also playing into is that it is, again, a cloaking technique or an invisibility technique of extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And that's the thing, like so I read through a whole bunch of encounters. I didn't want to sit here and tell you guys just like nonstop stories of it. I kind of wanted to get some similarities that were popping up along these different stories and there's even a Reddit like forum straight up on like just a category of the Glimmer Man that you can read countless stories. There's a lot of stories had it where it was in like a wooded area. Not really around neighborhoods from what I was seeing because there was like hunters that would see them, and like you said, very much like the areas that you would find Bigfoot. There's national forests. There's even been some areas, wooded areas near air bases that have had sightings of these Glimmermans, and it's all over the place. It's not just like a specific state or a specific region. It's been all over the United States and even in Tanzania, which I thought that was random, but I was like, okay, well, it's international, so
all right.
Yeah. But I just thought that was interesting because I was thinking, is there any like outside of the United States? And then I saw the one in Tanzania. I was like, well, there you go, international then. But the one thing that people specifically hear around sightings of the Glimmer Man is clicking or like metallic, like pipe hitting noises. Sometimes there's like a little faint like hissing sound, which I find interesting because even with Bigfoot, like there's a sound before, or sometimes there's sounds associated with Bigfoot as well. And the only issue that I feel like I'm having is like when you see this entity, people that caught video footage of it, right? Or claim that they caught video footage, because there's one on Reddit, and I'll post it in our episode description for you guys to see it as well if you want the link to it. But it literally looks like a humanoid thing, but invisible, like a heat wave of a human shape that's invisible. And it has me confused, though, because certain evidence of spirits have looked like this as well. If they can't manifest shape enough, it almost looks like someone invisible, but you can see the outline. Because the way this thing looked, that apparently this guy caught, it looks more like a spirit than it looks more... I don't know how to describe. You know what I'm talking about? Like...
Yes. And this leads me into a tangent of a theory. Mm-hmm. If you remember correctly, when I talked about, if you remember at all, not you, but people listening.
Yeah.
When I talked about my astral projection cases that I've had, two were that were most profound. One of the two happened here in this house, mm-hmm. where I astral projected out of my body because I felt someone's hand inside my chest trying to take out me, I guess, out of my vessel. Mm-hmm. And I was so furious that I couldn't do anything about it. But I basically jumped out of my body and stood at the other side of the bed and basically looked at the entity that was there. Now, the entity that I saw didn't have shape. It was invisible. But I could see the outline of it. Kind of like it was wearing an invisible suit. Right? And the expression it made on its face, that wasn't there, but I saw the way its body moved, that I could barely see, was like, oh crap. Right? Like he jumped out of his body. And this entity ran across the other side of the bed where I picked it up from his throat and started choking it, saying, I got him. But when I said the words, I got him, it basically disappeared out of my hands and I basically got pulled back inside my body. Now, the theory that I play around with is that the Glimmer Man, after realizing exactly how he looks like, how I remember that, it's only actually experience with him, is an interdimensional being that can basically shift from one reality to the other. We always say the ether is where spirits are, right? It's placed between our dimension and theirs. Now, the Glimmer Man could be another entity that never had shape, right? Never ever has shape. Like the shadow figures are like of they're just shadow, right? They have no. You can see the silhouette of them, but you can never really see their true face. Mm-hmm. This might be another entity like in the realm of light. That's a worse way to put it. Not light entities, but like entities that have no features no longer anymore.
Like a true shapeshifter.
No. A shadow figure you wouldn't call a shapeshifter. You just call it like a shadow figure. Yeah. But what would you call something that is like a shadow figure but is see-through and you can't see? Yeah. That's what made me thinking about the Shimmer Man, the Glimmer Man. It could be another entity like the shadow figure that doesn't have any features to their face or body, but is essentially invisible. Well, like if the shadow figure was in the shadows, you never know it's there.
That's true.
But the second light hits it, boom, you can see its shape. If a light, this invisible Glimmer Man, right, gets the right light hit on it the right direction, right, you can kind of see it. So then it doesn't become visible anymore.
And you know the creepy thing about your story? So there was some took place in wooded areas. But then there was others that took place in bedrooms. Meaning that people had like encounters while they were sleeping. Yeah. And same kind of like vibe, like they felt like somebody watching them. That was also something that was mentioned with the Glimmer Man in the wooded areas. But yeah, some people experienced it like in their bedroom, like you would like a shadow man, but it wasn't a shadow; it was invisible. Yeah, and that's creepy. Did you hear when it was doing that? Did you hear any noises?
No, it was silent. Silent.
Weird. Yeah. And that's the thing too. That's another thing that people were talking about as well. Is if they didn't hear the hissing and the like metallic pipe. Someone said it sounded like a metallic pipe hitting a tree. Yeah. Like a ring of a metallic pipe. But others found that it would get completely silent. Like you would hear birds and stuff before, like hunters and stuff, but then it would get silent. And you would hear absolutely nothing. and then they would continue on with whatever they're doing, and then they would get like a really ominous, like bad feeling, and they would look around, and then they would kind of see in like the tree line, like the heat wave, and then it would start like moving, almost like an amoeba like thing, which, you know, we've seen before and encountered, but it was like black shadow instead of invisibility. So
yeah, just my theory after thinking about that.
Creepy, the coincidences. So I guess I could go ahead and tell you about this lady's story. So this is a story it's been consistently republished and reshared all through Reddit. There's a site that specifically talks about Glimmer Man encounters, and it's called Phantoms and Monsters, and I'll link that in the episode description as well. So if you guys want to read even more encounter stories, you guys can go and check him out. But he also shared the story, and then it was also published on a site called Journal News Online. This is one of the most kind of like reshared stories of the Glimmer Man. So this lady begins to share her story when she was 5 years old, and she was playing by the edge of the woods behind her grandmother's house. She played out there often and said in her retelling that her grandma would often watch from the kitchen or living room window. She goes on to say she would come out every now and then to check on her. The lady, she had loved digging in the dirt as a kid and collecting rocks and arrowheads at a spot where her grandmother lived. And she lived in southern Illinois, not far from the, I'm going to butcher this, Cahokia Mounds. And then for those of you that don't know what that is, the Cahokia Mounds, I keep wanting to say mountains, but it's mounds. Cahokia Mounds State Historic Site is the site of a pre-Columbian Native American city directly across the Mississippi River from present-day St. Louis, Missouri. This historical park lies in southwestern Illinois between East St. Louis and Collinsville. So she said because of that, finding arrowheads and things like that wasn't uncommon. So this girl went out one day picking a spot to dig, and she had a pretty decent sized hole going when something caught her eye. She described it as a heat wave coming off a branch of the tree. She started staring at the heat wave and realizes it started to morph into a human shape and made a faint clicking sound. She realized she shouldn't be seeing this and bolted into the house. At the time, she coughed it up as her seeing an angel because, again, she was only 5 years old and just didn't know what she was seeing. And the only thing she could experience it with is an angel. But when she was 12, she began to get obsessed with action and sci-fi films. Her dad had rented The Predator. She started watching it, and the first time you see the Predator invisible and cloaked, she freaked out because she realized that's what I saw. Mm-hmm. And she had asked her dad, she's like, is this something real, or what is this? Because I've seen something like this. And he goes, no, this is like a fake sci-fi movie. Like, there's nothing out there. Like, this isn't based on anything true. And so after that, freaked her out. Fast forward to 2004, she's grown and has 3 small children. She was going through a separation from her husband and moved to the next town over in an apartment with her kids. She was at the very last apartment of the last building, and there's a chain fence that separates the backyard from this deep ditch. There's about 6 to 7 trees on their side of the fence. If you follow the ditch a bit, there's a small forest that leads to the country area and then to a larger forest and farmland. She explains in the article that they still live in kind of like a neighborhood, but like on the outskirts of town. So she often went outside to the back porch to smoke cigarettes. One night she had been up late doing laundry and the kids went to bed. She decided to take a smoke break, and when she was on the back porch, she started hearing a faint clicking noise. She looked to the ditch because she saw a groundhog out there a couple days ago and was curious to see if that's what it was. The yard was faintly lit from the outside light by the playground to the right of her porch. She didn't turn on the porch light because it was just for a quick smoke. She never really did. She didn't see the groundhog. Sorry, that just sounded really weird. Okay. She didn't see the groundhog or any movement from the ditch, just he continued to smoke her cigarette. The faint clicking sounds started happening again, and she saw a slight shift of movement that made her look to the tree to the left of her porch. The same invisible thing she had seen when she was 5, she described as like a distortion and in a humanoid shape. She ran in, slammed the door, and locked it. She turned off all the lights and just stared out of the blinds. She sat there for a good 10 minutes, and when she couldn't see anything, she thought maybe she was just tired and it was her mind playing tricks. Just as she finally calmed herself down, the neighbor's dog started running across the yard, barking at the tree, which had startled her because that particular dog was not a barker. Barking continued for a few minutes, and then eventually the dog was called back inside. She didn't sleep at all that night, and ever since then, I guess hasn't seen it. And she just basically went on the forum to ask anybody else if they had that encounter. But it's been, like I said, one of those stories that have been just reshared, and it's been a main focal point in Glimmer Man encounters.
Mind you, Predator came out in 1987.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was born.
Yeah. So one thing to keep in mind that I thought was interesting is, I was going through all these stories in this Reddit thing just dedicated to Glimmer Man, right? I keep saying
Glimmerman?
it. I keep saying
Is
it
that
like
a
it's
person?
a last name. Oh, Lord.
John Glimmerman.
we need a t-shirt with that. But there was a commenter on one of the Reddit forums. The person that left it, her name was Becker. That question, could it be possible an organism has evolved to avoid visual detection by humans? And, basically like another species that has co-evolved to exceed the limitations of our optics. What made her start thinking of that is the cephalopods, who blend in with the background and become undetectable. So like certain octopuses on the ocean floor and chameleons and stuff like that. So could there have been... But then it makes you think, okay, well, what other humanoid things are out there? Like, what human-like species is doing that then?
Well, that goes also in the theory with Bigfoot and how he's an ancestor or a cousin to humans, and since how we evolved, and we evolved the way we did, and he evolved the way he did. And we kind of wiped out all, this has to be ancient humans, right? Before the Mesopotamian or way before then, they kind of wiped out all forms of what we would see as rivals. Native Americans have legends of killing giants, right? There could be other species out there we killed or massacred, or even a species that was smart enough to avoid humans because it saw what's happened to the others, and decided to create a way of getting out of there, and somehow discovered how to camouflage themselves by reflecting light off their skin. And that's how such camouflage works. At least in theory of how invisibility would work, is reflecting light so it looks like it's what's in front of it's behind it, and what's behind it's in front of it. Mm-hmm. So it's not a mirror; it's just reflecting what's behind it. So kind of like you're seeing you're seeing through it, like an X-ray. Yeah.
Interesting. So there was another story. This was featured on that Phantoms and Monsters blog. This next story I want to specifically talk about for a couple of different reasons. One being that it is close to us. It's in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is 2 hours away?
Greensboro,
yes.
Yeah, we went there.
Yeah, for AEW Collision.
Yeah.
So it's about 2 hours away?
2.5.
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So not too far. But what really made me glue into her story, and I may actually reach out to her, is because she is talking about crazy things that are happening at a park in her neighborhood that's behind her house. And I think that's so ironic because our park over here that we've experienced crazy things, I find it interesting. I just want to let her know she is not alone because we have had that experience as well. But the person in the story, she shared a lot of information with the blogger for Phantoms and Monsters, but she didn't actually share it in the article. She just gave a brief overview, but she shared like stuff that she has caught with him and like evidence and stuff like that. But so the person in the story, like I said, says she lives near Greensboro, North Carolina, and has multiple instances that happened at a park behind her home. It started in June of 2022, about 2 weeks after moving into their home, that they noticed the trees being moved as though something huge was moving them.
Yeah.
And then she also goes and talks about how there's weird things in the trees, which really weirds me out, because if anybody listened to our haunted update for October and any like lives that we did when we went to the park, that was the thing that we were talking about recently, about the fact that there was stuff in the trees. And majority of any kind of like photography evidence that I got when I was there, it was figures in the trees. When I felt my backpack being pulled, it was in the direction of the trees. So I just find that, I don't know, I find that weird. And the fact that she says it's like something big is going, like hopping through the trees, like almost like a monkey would.
Yeah.
But there's no monkeys in our terrain or anything like that. Not terrain, but like forests and stuff.
Yeah.
Especially in a neighborhood, unless someone bought a monkey and released it. But I mean, what are the possibilities of that? And even so, she said it would have to be like a bigger monkey to do that. So that also makes me think, it just makes me like itch my head, because, you know, at the park that we experienced the stuff at, we had things with the trees. Remember the tree breaking?
Yeah.
And not understanding why something that big was able to break it and stuff like that. And so, I don't know. It just makes you really think what
the theory with that branch is that an alien ship landed right there.
Yeah. But the point is too, like, there is even, somebody had even brought up when we were talking about things that were happening, somebody even brought up, oh snap, could there be a Bigfoot there? Right?
Or Puckwudgie.
Yeah, or some kind of cryptid. And the fact that a cryptid was talked about and even alien stuff was talked about. And then those are also two of the theories as to what this Glimmer Man is. Kind of makes you scratch your head. Like, what are the coincidences between the two? You know?
Yeah.
Anyways. But they tried kind of debunking it, trying to do different tests to see if it was the wind doing this, and it just wasn't. It wasn't the wind. Everything kind of made them X out the possibility of it being the wind. She goes on to say that the things that she had encountered made her think of things that could only come out of sci-fi movies. They tried to take pictures of these anomalies, but could never capture anything. She said she tried over and over again to take pictures in the trees and to grab like in photos like of the things, which I also find interesting, because anytime we try and take pictures of the lights, remember, we weren't able to in the sky.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting. But she says she had a feeling of being watched, neon green lights, and also seeing like some humanoid things here and there. But she had reached out to the Phantoms and Monster bloggers guy and had asked like, well, what do you think this is? And just from the things that were shown behind the scenes to him, he truly thinks that it's like Glimmer Man experiences.
That old John Glimmer Man.
Yeah, we need a t-shirt.
Not to be confused with his cousin Shimmerman.
But yeah, those are kind of the stories that kind of took me aback. A lot of the stories, had the hissing and the clicking noises, had the feeling of being watched. And a lot of people also said it had them like stunned for a second. Like, they don't know if it was, am I seeing what I'm seeing kind of stunned, or if it was truly like they were hypnotized for a couple seconds, like not frozen, because everything was still, they were able to move and stuff, but it felt like time was frozen for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
There's also some not theories, but like some speculation that this thing has abilities that are similar to teleportation, levitation, and disappearing at will. So, and that's another thing that was in a lot of the stories, is like as fast as it appeared, it disappeared. One story in particular saw the thing like hunting deer, which I find that interesting, because why would an entity have to eat if it's not a creature? Yeah. You know what I mean? If it was like a spirit or just like a like demonic type of being type thing, why it wouldn't have to eat, you know?
Yeah.
So if it eats, that means it's a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I need sustenance.
Yes. But one thing that had me go down a really weird thing is that apparently there was a document by the Defense Intelligence. It was a reference document. It was unclassified, and it's called the Invisibility Cloaking Theories and Experiments. So, government type document talking about this. And this is what some of the interesting parts. It's 24 pages, so I'll also link that in our description in the episode if you guys want to read the entire thing and look into what it says. But here are just some interesting blurbs that came from the article. It says invisibility may be achieved through 3 principal methods: camouflage, transparency, and cloaking. Many animals and some plants use camouflage to distinguish themselves or to disguise themselves from predators. For example, by assuming the shapes and colors of objects in their surrounding. The military has long used forms of camouflage. A recent military application of camouflage is considered stealth technology, which we all know that they wear camouflage when they go in the woods and stuff like that. We've seen it. Even some weaponry, you know, like jets and stuff like that, have camouflage ability in the sky. So they talk about cloaking. They said it's a universal strategy for invisibility that works for objects of arbitrary compositions and shapes within a given size. In cloaking, the hidden object is enclosed by the cloaking device, a transparent shell that guides light around the object as if the light would propagate through empty space. In this way, both the interior of the cloaking device is hidden and the act of hiding is concealed. Cloaking device is a passive device made of a transparent material that guides light around any object in its interior as if the light has passed through empty space. The cloaking device conceals the object and hides the act of hiding itself. Perfect cloaking devices are impossible because they require materials where the speed of light approaches infinity. Imperfect cloaking devices could be made. Such devices implement suitable curved space geometrics. For electromagnetic microwaves, cloaking devices are definitely within reach of the present technology. Whether invisibility in the visible range of the spectrum will become a reality is not entirely clear yet. Most possibly, this will depend more on the new theoretical research than on advances in new materials, and on the application of mathematical intelligence, intuition, and imagination. So this was an actual government document saying that.
Yeah.
Saying that invisibility and stuff like that is not 100% like not capable.
Yes, what they want us to know.
So that makes you think if they are even coming out with that like that could be a thing. And it also makes you think if Bigfoot, like the government has a hand in the whole Bigfoot thing, could they have given Bigfoot something to conceal themselves? But then you're talking about that means that Bigfoot has a high level of intelligence to be able to communicate, you know?
Or certain ones do.
Yeah.
There's theories beyond theories beyond theories beyond theories amongst the Bigfoot community. Then you blend it in with the other stuff and as well, and it just starts getting in crazy land. Yeah. But one of the stronger considerations that I was making, and it has to go with my other theory when I was talking about the entity that tried to pull my soul out of my vessel. Mm-hmm. Electromagnetic energy is what they use to describe the energy that you need to bend along with emitting to help bend light, at least in theory. Spirits are made of what?
Energy.
No. What device do we use?
Oh, electromagnetic.
Yes. So that means that the same energy you use to bend light is the same energy that is what spirit's made out of, supposedly. Now, like I said, are spirits made out of EMF energy? Not necessarily, but that's the only tool that we have to pick up where they are. So by default, technically they are now. Or at least they give off EMF energy to begin with. But then it led me to the idea of why we can't see spirits or demons or any other creatures that are inside our realm. This third dimensional realm. It's because the human eye is incapable of seeing certain spectrums of light. So if these entities are made out of certain spectrums of light and can cloak and decloak themselves, it's not a sensitive technology. It's maybe another form of technology that we haven't even considered. Right? Something of the spiritual essence, right?
Yeah.
If we could hide ourselves in the fourth dimensional plane or the ether versus trying to take us camouflaging ourselves in the third dimensional plane, then you could be camouflaged anywhere at all times. Imagine a soldier entering the ether to hide themselves, but they can see everyone else and no one can hear or see them. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. And it all has to do with the idea of how demons and spirits do it. Granted, competing it with the physical vessel is a whole different thing, but then again, spirits are also capable of grabbing shit, moving stuff, slamming doors, able to be heard, right? So there is some technology there that we're not even considering, or not even putting our thoughts to, because we consider it as hogwash or fupa, whatever you want to call it. Just thinking of old-timey words.
Yeah.
But no, when I started thinking about it, I was like, it makes a lot of sense in an essence of how like spiritual beings and things that we encounter daily, we can't see. Well, I can't see, but say someone, a psychic medium who is clairaudient or clairvoyant, can see them. This got me thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the Glimmer Man, like when you look into the, are you still laughing about that?
Because you're saying Glimmer Man as is his last name.
Glimmer Man.
Glimmer Man, not Glimmer Man.
It's
The Glimmer Man.
Glimmer Man. See,
You
it
say
sounds
Spider-Man?
I probably do, and I just don't know. I don't know. It sounds weird. Glimmer Man. Glimmerman. I like Glimmerman. But I don't know.
Anyway.
Yeah. But it does, when you start digging into the legend and like reading people's stories and what they encountered, it makes you really kind of question what the heck it could be. And I think, and we're going to do an episode, I think, in December about different entities that we've encountered and that are talked about, that there's not a, because you have like regular spirits and then you have demonic beings, but there's so many in that category of demonic beings. So, and not even demonic beings, it's just like different entities.
Yeah.
You know, that are not human, I should say.
That's what makes me think that Glimmer Man.
Haha, you said it.
I was waiting for you to react. The Glimmer Man might be another entity that hasn't been classified properly, or at least hasn't been studied enough to be classified as a spirit in a sense like that. Because most people are associating it with an actual creature versus a spirit.
Yeah. But if they saw it, it makes you wonder, because if it's, that one guy saw it hunting something, so that would have to be.
Well, why can't it be both? Why can't these creatures be alive and when they're dead, they're still invisible?
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. I didn't think of that as well.
Yeah, like we've encountered skinwalkers that are dead, the spirits of them, and they still whistle in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creepiness.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. It makes you question a lot. And I don't, from the stories that I heard, I don't think it's completely, like, I could see it being a thing. I could see it being real. I mean, I've never encountered it that I know of. Who the heck knows? Going back to the, you know, a certain, I'm wanting to go back to the park because I have some questions.
Well, we need to go back there anyway because of, not the unfinished business. We kind of cleared everything out.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, it's one of those things that, like, it's got just so much in the area that it almost like feeds a never ending kind of like turning wheel at the park, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess this wraps us up here for today.
Yeah. with the Glimmer Man.
What are we talking about next week?
So next week is your ancient hauntings.
Yes,
episode.
ancient hauntings, of how ancient societies dealt with demonic entities and hauntings in their own.
Yeah, because it goes back a long time, and it's always interesting to... I even think it's interesting with the settlers and stuff and how they dealt with it. But
And you have a bonus episode too next week?
yes, no, not next week, this week.
Oh, this
so
week, yes.
this Wednesday, you guys are going to have a bonus episode that I did with my mom, and it blew me away. I had to stop and tell her wait, what? This happened? She tells a lot of stories of her childhood, and then you also hear the perspective of my stories that I tell regularly on the podcast through her eyes. And so it'll be good.
So look forward to those episodes, or look for that one next week and then Megan's episode this week.
Yes.
But as always, guys, you can catch our social media, the Hidden in the Shadows podcast on Instagram, Hidden in the Shaw 6 on X, Hidden in the Hidden in the Shadows Podcast 2 on TikTok.
Yep.
Links to all social media always, and let's do it at hiddenshadowspodcast.com. As always, we catch your weirdos in the next one.
Yes.